Ladies and gentlemen, Las Vegas, give it up for Denise Crosby and John Lancie.
This is like Johnny Carson or something.
Everyone says that.
Do they?
Everyone says that.
It's because we never. I once walked I snuck onto the set of Johnny Carson. And I was, I grew up watching that show, so I slipped through the curtains. And it was like nobody, it was a blank set. And I was like, hi, Johnny. It's like, I was like faking having a guest on. And suddenly it's, hello? Like a loudspeaker came on. He said, you are not allowed to be here. I said, okay, I'm sorry. And I ran off. That was this close.
Well, this is better than Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson didn't have this many people in the audience. But, both of you, here we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And then next year, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of The Next Generation.
We should go. We get a room.
A room and a suite at the Rio for a year.
Why do this again? And the Olympics are kicking off in Rio, but I'd rather be at this Rio. Yes! Back at that time. And we just had LeVar Burton and Gates McFadden and Brent Spiner talking about the late 80s, when Star Trek was coming back. And being there at the beginning of that, what was the climate at Paramount among the cast, among the writers and producers? Were you sort of like given like this thing where, don't worry about the other show, we're going to do our own thing? What was it like to be there at the beginning?
Well, it was an interesting time. The cast bonded very quickly. We felt, it just sort of happened naturally. The personalities meshed. It also was a long day, every day we were together. The climate, we had no idea what we were entering into. It was actually a very hostile environment at the beginning. The feeling was that was sort of trickling down to us was kind of like, how dare you make a new Star Trek? This is untouchable. This is sacrilegious. You can't make another Star Trek. It'll be terrible. And so the vibe was really kind of hostile at first, until the show began to run. And people, fortunately, enjoyed it and loved it, and I think we turned people around.
I'll say you turned people around. John, when it was originally written, Encounter at Farpoint didn't have the whole sort of through line with Q. And this was a through line that started in Encounter at Farpoint, and not only became a through line for The Next Generation, but also Deep Space Nine and Voyager. But what was your take on Q when you read it? Like, were you just like, I got this? Or did it take a bit to kind of wrap your head around who he was?
I was doing a play at the time. I was rehearsing a play at the time, and I was playing Amundsen, who in a production which it was called Terra Nova, and which is about the conquest of the Antarctic. And there's Scott and his, I think, 7 actors, all in white, and then there's Amundsen who walks through this set in black. So I was already in that sort of mode. I was playing a very powerful specter in this other play. So when I went to do the audition, I literally left rehearsal, went up to Paramount, did the audition, and then, you know, this tall guy comes out and says, "You make my words sound better than they are," and I was in, but I didn't know what I was into. It was, you know, well, we know, you go out there and you are, you know, you're pulling your bow back and you try to hit the target, bang. And then I went off to, and they had hired Patrick at that point. And Patrick and I and Corey Allen got together to rehearse. And we rehearsed 2 or 3 times, and then I said, you know, it's a television show. There's enough rehearsing. We should be shooting. Because, you know, if you rehearse too much with these words, they don't hold up after a while.
Again.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not, you know, you're not doing Shakespeare. It's you know, so then I went off to Japan to do the show, and when I came back, you guys were 2 weeks into it. And we were just talking about it just now. I came back on a, I don't know, Saturday night, I think it was, and on Monday morning, I was turning you into stone. And I was
We're doing a Frozen episode.
you. That's right. Except apparently I was freezing you with hot paraffin. And in all of that, a couple of days later, Gene came up to me and said, "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." And so when you say, "Well, here we are on the 50th, and next year it'll be the 30th," and I go, "You know what? He said to me back then, I have no idea what you're going to get yourself into," and he was right.
When did you realize what you were getting yourself into? Not just with regards to, I mean that as a compliment, by the way. But when did you realize the scope of, and even back then, I mean, you know, the following that the old show, the original series had, and the fans, you know, devoted, passionate, smart fans. And you know, when did it hit you that you were part of something special that was going to get even more special as the years went on?
Well, can I just quickly give
Of course.
Is that I think it was the middle of the first year, and I had only done 1 or 2 at the most, or something like that. And I got called by Adam to go to a Star Trek convention. I go, "Oh, okay." And it was in Florida, and it was like in, you know, August or something. And he will throw you out on stage. I was like, "Oh my God." And I look out, and there are people in costumes. And I remember afterwards I was saying to my wife, I don't know, it was like being at, you know, Halloween or something. You know? And that's when I began to go, oh, you know what? These people are much further ahead than I am in terms of what this means to them. And I need to start really honing in and understanding what's going on here. Yeah.
You know, Denise, when you first met Gene and you were not, I've actually read different things over the years, and I'm not sure if you could clear the air and set the record straight. Were you always intended for Tasha, or was there something where you might play Deanna?
My original audition was for Troy. Yeah, it was the way that, again, we weren't given a script. Now, these days, this is very common practice. You know, when I did The Walking Dead, there was no script available, and I never saw a script of The Walking Dead because they really have to guard everything, and they can't take the risk of something leaking. I mean, there's people who are dedicated to, you know, spoiling the show on the internet. So
Putin.
Julian Assange. He is, yeah, he's under house arrest because of The Walking Dead. That's the true story. So they gave us, you know, script pages, you know, sides, what we call sides, to audition with, and you know, it had this this empath from you know, a Betazoid and what the hell is a Betazoid? And they said, well, just, you know, she's kind of like from Iceland. She's from Iceland. ice
You're
sled.
never going to be able to.
You know, I
isolate
mean, where am
that.
I going? I know, and no, okay, but what does this mean? What is this thing? We don't, just, you know, she's kind of a therapist. She's kind of a therapist. This was Troy. And she was very, so the character description was quite different than, you know, Marina. You would look at Marina, would be more my physical type. And Tasha was sort of modeled after the character in Alien. Vasquez,
Yes.
you know, kind of, the aliens had made such an impact, and this tough little fighter, and compact and dark and everything. And somewhere along the way, 5 auditions later, I think we had to read, Jean just said, I like you as an actor and I like you as an actor, but let's flip you guys. And we did it once, and that's how it landed.
That is absolutely amazing. Setting the record straight. Excellent. You know, John, when you did come back for Q, did you realize, like, at what point did you realize that this was going to be a recurring character? Did you know that when you did encounter Farpoint that they might bring the character back, or was it just at the end of filming that episode that the pilot for Next Gen, well, that was that?
Gene said to me that we're going to, he said, I'd like to bring you back 6 times a year. I said, okay. And then maybe about 2 months later, he said, you know, I actually can't do that. I said, okay. I mean, you have to understand, this is, you have no power. You just go, whatever. And so for me, every episode was the last episode. And understandably, I only did 6 Next Generation episodes.
You know, so Denise, like, what the first, well, I mean, you were there for the first season too. What was it was a tough season. It was tough because you were following the original show, and you were, it took a couple of seasons for Next Gen to really, like, hit its stride. But what did you envision for the character of Tasha? And at what point did you go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be?
Well, we were just talking about that earlier. You know, television at that time was really changing, and there were you know, big casts in. I kind of always go back to Hill Street Blues because that was just a game changer for me for television, and you know, there were just a lot of storylines, multiple storylines. So I thought the show with this many characters would have, you know, 3 storylines going on, you know, per hour. And Gene really wanted to stick with the original model of the original, you know, show from the 60s, which was, you know, a very straightforward 1 storyline show. And it began to sort of fall into place. You know, again, we did 26 shows per season, which is, I've never seen another show do that. I don't know another show has ever done. I mean, I'm assuming DS9 and Voyager did, but you know, I mean, now you do a show, it's 12 episodes a season.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, that's why everybody wants to do TV, because they not only the writing is phenomenal, but you know, they actually have months off to be with their families and have a life. This was we had maybe 6 weeks off, you know. So I mean, you had to really want to be there and do this, and I was just getting increasingly frustrated, you know, as an actor, that I would just stand around. And I actually said to the producers, they thought I was joking, but I said, you know, why don't you just make a mock-up of my legs? You know, just get like some legs and put them on the bridge in the spot that I'm always standing, because I don't have any dialogue. And, you know, keep the camera low on, you know, Patrick, you don't have to pan up to you, and it'll look like I'm there. And I can go home. And they go, oh, Denise, don't be silly. No, really, you should do that. And anyway, you know, I couldn't see doing that for 6 more years.
But the amazing thing, Denise, is other than Q, who came back as Q repeatedly, you came back.
You don't know that.
I know that. But Denise, they figured out ways to bring you back, like different timelines, different characters. I mean, like, what is that? How special did that feel for you that the producers and writers found a way to bring you back in different ways?
I just, it's like I was that strange vine that they keep, chopping off and it grows another head or something. It was just amazing and complete. I was surprised each time. I mean, I never saw that as a possibility. When I died, I thought, and even Jean said, I want to do something I've never done. I want to kill this character. It'll be so shocking, and I just want to take the risk. The bad part of that is that you can never come back.
Except as your daughter.
As even myself, as the same character came back the first time. Yeah, what a great. It's like I did I had to die to get the best show, the best episode.
Let's talk. Well, what did you think when you read the script for yesterday's Enterprise?
I thought it was incredible, and I had such a great time doing the show. It was such a surprise, such a gift. I loved the chance that I could work with Whoopi, because I had missed that, introduction of that character. And I had met Whoopi prior, and I knew her a little bit. And, Christopher McDonald, who played Lieutenant Castillo, and I...
Call him Richard. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry,
what he said in between, how he endeared me forever.
Yeah.
Well, so that great scene, he goes, what do they call you? When you're, well, I'm Lieutenant Tasha Yar. I'm Lieutenant Yar. Well, no. When you're not working, what do they call you? Well, my friends call me Tasha. And I said, how about you? Well, you can call me Richard. But we did a take, and he said, but you can call me Dick.
I don't remember that in the episode.
I laughed so hard that from that point forward in that episode, I said, don't ever look at me when you're acting. Don't look at me I couldn't keep a straight face during that episode with him.
I'll keep that in mind the next time I watch it. John, second season episode, Q Who, not only had Q, but the Borg. I mean, that's the second season of that show. That was the third one that I think you did. And what was your take on the Borg, on the kind of impact that the Borg would have in addition to Q as Next Generation continued to evolve?
Well, it was a whole new sort of notion. I mean, a whole new. As a kid, I grew up with loving different monsters, and so this was a whole new type of alien. I didn't have some big projections about it, other than to think, ooh, these guys are really sort of badass. That's right. It's funny that I'm working on Star Trek timelines. I spent a fair amount of time. And so I'm getting to go back and know the show far better than I ever did as an actor on the show, because I'm now working with people who really know the show, and I'm involved in a I think a significant way with certainly some of the plotting of the story and what have you. So I get to ask, and it wasn't until just last week I said, okay, really explain to me some of the characteristics of the Borg so that we can take that and begin to apply it. And of course, I'm talking to people who are really experts at it. And so I now know a lot more about the Borg than I did as Q.
The other thing is, as Q kept popping up, I think more than any other character on Next Gen, the way Q and Picard would just battle it was a battle of wits. between each other, and your chemistry with Patrick was fantastic. Right up until the last episode of Next Generation, which is the best series finale, I said this earlier, ever, All Good Things.
Yeah, All Good Things was a very good show.
But for both of you to be a part of that incredible finale, I just wanted to share some great memories of you, especially being back for that. And John, you just coming full circle from Encounter at Farpoint. I mean, it's a great episode.
Well, I wanted to say something, and it's true, is that in the first year, and Jonathan Frakes would say to me when I would come back, "You're the litmus paper. Sit down and tell me what you see is different." And there's no question in that first year, it was sort of a three-legged, sometimes two-legged stool. And you could sort of feel that people were trying to find their ways. The actors, the directors, but mostly the writers, and the whole way in which it was perceived. But by the second year, it began to sort of really, the slide was greased and it was beginning to move. And I began to sense that as I came in the third year and fourth year, you were coming into an important show that everybody was going to watch. There was going to be an enormous amount of discussion about afterwards, and certainly by the time All Good Things, everybody was at their top game, and wanting to make sure that the show ended on a real high note. And that's a great feeling, and it's not many shows that I'm sure you've had this experience. I mean, the last show that I've done that had that feel was Breaking Bad. You walk in and everybody is, all the way, the gaffers, the DP, everybody is really, doing it. And that was the way it was on Trek towards the end,
And especially for you to come back and to sort of play Tasha, the first Tasha.
It's interesting that I was taken by surprise a little bit when I was asked to come back and do this part. I thought, oh, great, yeah, oh no, I know, of course I know Tasha Yar. I played her and I got her, and I got into that uniform and got onto the set and got into that space capsule and had Captain Picard, and he said his first line, and it was like, what? What am I doing? Who am I? I was like clueless. I did not feel like I could I just assumed I could just walk right in and be Tasha Yar again. And I had to I was struggling because, again, Patrick was now, 7 years into this role. And I was really coming from, I was not prepared, and I had to grab and dig down deep quickly and really, sort of grab onto something to play this role. I just assumed I knew who this character was.
You figured
and
it out.
I did the best I
and
could.
what you did is that, this is just an interesting thing, is that you all of a sudden, you think that what you're doing is recreating, but one cannot recreate. You have to create. And that meant that you just had to pull all that hiatus right up to, and then, so, okay, I'm here now.
That's right, because that is you're in the moment of the now. You're not, and that tricked me a little bit. It was really an interesting acting exercise. Purely selfishly on my part,
Wow. Well, let's take some questions over here. Who's got a question? Yes, hi.
Hi, this is a question for John, and I was just wondering that in the episode where Q loses his powers and gets kicked out of the continuum, what were your thoughts about how he felt and that he goes from this all-powerful being to something that can just get stepped on?
Well, how I felt, it wasn't so much about how I felt. I mean, as an actor, you understand what the gag is, okay? And since I had already played a character, you cannot play an omnipotent being. You know, you go around like this and you point, and, you know, but after a few minutes, you kind of, that's it, that's as far as it goes. So I always played an omnipotent being with clay feet, or an omnipotent being who's too stupid to know it. So that there was something to push against. And so here it was, I literally was playing that. I mean, here was an episode which was, well, we're now going to see the clay feet, or see the fact that he's not as hot as he thinks he is. So that's fun. It's just fun.
You know, I want to ask, because we're addressing a very passionate and very big crowd of diehard Trekkers today. I mean, is there anything you would like to say to the fans on the 50th anniversary of Star Trek? Anything, any parting messages, any parting words?
Other than how they should vote for this.
Yeah. Party, we're not going anywhere. I got another 50. Yeah, the election.
Well, okay. I do. I mean, this is probably the most significant career relationship of my life. And like, in the same way that Leonard, you know, had to write a book saying, I'm not Spock, and then had to write another book saying, I am Spock, and what have you. You have kept us focused on a show which is, well, 29 years old, and I guess I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful.
There has never been a convention that I've gone to where I haven't been moved so deeply by the personal stories, by the effect and the gratitude, the exchange of personal feelings and gratitude that, you know, we share. This is such a unique experience that we get to come to these places all over the world and meet fans who are delighted to tell us what this show has meant in context in their lives. And I know that I'm a more sensitive, loving person, without getting, you know, too kumbaya here, but getting, just, my heart is bigger from having had this experience. We're always grateful as actors, you know, to have jobs. I mean, that's what we do, and, you know, many are called and few are chosen, and, you know, that is something we're grateful for already. And then to have this exchange of what the show has brought to us, and, you know, the tales that I've heard over the last 30 years. It's deeply moving and deeply rewarding, and I too feel only gratitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Denise Crosby and John Lancie.